We're recording. Good.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Siri. We're back. Welcome to Grounded and Soaring, our podcast that explores how we might raise healthy kids in a too often unhealthy world. I'm Terry DeBow. I run the communications office at Marin Montessori School, and we're going to record and release this episode on basically Grounded and Soaring's first birthday. It's a healthy 1-year-old. Happy birthday, Grounded and Soaring.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And so we're also on the cusp of winter break. And it's been fun to put this together, and we've been heartened to hear that there's an audience out there listening to podcasts and reading blog posts, etc. And so now that break's here, we thought it might be a good idea to hear from Siri Panday, our Director of Education for Toddler and Primary, about ways for young children to make the most of this and any extended break from the routine of school. So welcome, Siri.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
It's always great to have you on here. So let's talk about break. Parents, I remember this when my kids were young, can have a complicated relationship with breaks, particularly parents of young children. They are a time to slow down, reconnect, all the good stuff, but they can also have a lot of downtime, and sometimes that can be problematic. So what's your general approach to helping parents and children make the most of the time off from school?
So first of all, enjoy the change of pace as a parent, right? We're all excited to not have to rush out the door when it's break, and we are probably excited to get some relief from the routines, the crush of the car line, the lunch, making the lunches, and so on. So enjoy it as a parent. And I would say my best and first tip would be to maintain your child's routine and their structure of a good and typical day. Don't throw everything out. Yeah. You've really gotten to a great space at this point in the year when you reach winter break with your routine. So don't throw that all away. Keep the bedtime and wake times the same if at all possible.
Really?
If at all possible.
If at all possible.
I mean, maybe you give it a 1 hour change, but just remember that children and animals are really creatures of routine, and routine is kind of queen. So if at all possible, keep that early bedtime, and maybe you just enjoy a little bit more time in the evening yourself. But certainly if you're traveling and you have time changes or time zone changes, you're going to think about keeping the routine and the predictability of the structure and the routine of what children need as much as possible. So going in the same order can really be reassuring, right? So let's say the morning waking routine. You know, your child's going to have their breakfast and then they're going to be ready for some activity. So depending on your child's proclivity to move, maybe after breakfast you want to make sure that they get some of their energy out. Maybe you're going to a park. Maybe you're ready to go out and about. So thinking about what are my child's needs at these different times of the day, what are they typically doing, and trying to mirror it if at all possible. And so providing connection time is really important, activities, some downtime, some structure, but just a balance of activities and giving your child space to enjoy and cultivate their sense of wonder. I think what I really appreciate about our youngest children is that just kind of anything is really exciting to them. They are fascinated by a rock. So you really don't have to overdo it in the break time, and you can really follow their lead as much as possible. And the youngest children really do enjoy a staycation, and there's so much to do here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that. And when you do a staycation, sometimes you discover things that are just outside your door that you never noticed.
Right.
We certainly have that. All right. So that's a general approach. Let's get specific, starting with toddlers. What tips might you have for parents of these young kids?
Sure. So look at your space. So whether you're staying home for a staycation, or maybe you've got a great Airbnb lined up, or you're at a grandparent's house, look at your space. And winter is a great time for Montessori in the home, and consider joy checking your child's belongings. Certainly if you're traveling, you're going to want to make sure that there are some activities that are set up for them to have access to independently, because they're definitely used to doing that here at school. If you're staying home, enjoy checking your child's belongings before the break and before any holiday gift giving arrives is another tip that I would have. In general, we have a lot of stuff, so keeping things simplified, age appropriate, and set up so that your child can be as age appropriately independent as possible is ideal. And just think about the different modalities that they might have. Something to squish. That might be Play-Doh or clay. And you can change those up. Something to build with. That might be Duplos for the youngest toddler. And as they get older into primary, it might be Legos and so on, when that's not a choking hazard. So also look at what your child's particularly interested in and meet that need. I think it's really great to ride those waves of interest. Children go through them. It might be a fox one year, and then they might be particularly interested in horses or dogs and so on. So just tailoring and following that interest so that they have things that are high interest, age appropriate, and simple that they can enjoy on their own. books, and puzzles are always great.
Yeah.
And when your child is starting to get into writing for our older children, or even for toddlers, they might be drawing, having an art book, with like a spiral bound art book and a collection of large crayons that they can work with is great. And then as your child gets older into primary, you might be having a set of pencils out, some colored pencils to inspire writing and drawing and so on, because children always love doing that. And just enjoy sharing your hobbies and interests with your child. I think what you're excited about, what you're jazzed about, they're going to get excited about as well. So, but just keep things manageable and work with their natural rhythms. Of course, keeping eating times and nap times sacred and bedtime consistent is really important. And consider using clocks or timers and calendars for the primary age child. That's really helpful. There's so much more I could say, but I know this is a podcast, but only ask what's reasonable for them. Simple is often best. A couple of hours for an outing is better than an all-day buffet.
Yeah. I do remember just the exhaustion that a kid, they're really excited at the beginning, and then they're just the same age, and so they're gonna
peter out. Yeah. So an all-day bonanza is exhausting for everyone, and they can't possibly keep up. So try to have those a couple of hours of an activity, a couple of hours of sightseeing, a couple of hours at a museum, and just bring it to a graceful close. And think about windows and timings for outings. I always felt like 9 to 11 was a reasonable window. You're done with breakfast. You're not too close to lunch. And then for the nappers, a 3:30 to 5 is also good. Again, doing the home meal times at home tends to be more centering and grounding for them, and less noise and less distractions, and they're more likely to have a nice lunch and then go into their nap.
So I assume there's a progression as kids get older. Do you have any specific tips for parents of, say, 2 to 5-year-olds?
Sure. So a lot of it's going to stay the same. Simple is best. Nature walks, beach, trips to the library, singing groups, things like that. Family meal times are really important. Integrating your child into helping around the home, even if you're traveling, helping with laundry, anchoring the day with simple participation in daily life activities. Even if you're at a restaurant, having them, if it's a kind where they can help with the cleanup a little bit, if it's one of those places where you have to bus your spot, have your child help carry the tray, and just see how they can be involved in even carrying their own items. If you're getting on a plane, give them a backpack to see if they can start to increase their age-appropriate responsibility. Certainly for the older children, the Lego pieces are going to change. They're going to get smaller to just keep enhancing the level of challenge. Similarly, the puzzle pieces are going to change. You're going to move away from the knobbed puzzle pieces to the smaller ones. Just keep upping the ante and upping the challenge. Letters might become of interest for them. Books about the sound of letters to reinforce the phonetics. I noticed that play acting, real life activities had a long life at home in my home. So a cash register was so fun, and there were so many ways and so many angles that could be enjoyed. We ended up having fun with sort of taking orders and pretending that you were at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was almost, you're playing pretend in a way, but it's a real life activities. And I think that's a nice place for a primary child to try on their imagination, but it's grounded in reality, which really supports them understanding how the real world works. So, taking orders and maybe bringing a cup of tea,
right.
And you can start to turn the tables where they're bringing something maybe for you. Maybe you're seated and you order a cup of coffee, and maybe they are 5 and they know how to press the button on the Nespresso machine, and they can bring you a cup of coffee. And be careful, with the older child. You might have an early reader who might be having early reader books out, and you just have a small collection that are of interest to them. You make these opportunities and these availabilities. Maybe you bring a couple of small readers in their backpack on the travel. And so you just create those opportunities and that space for them to engage with things that are of interest and the right level of challenge. And I think the older children can kind of keep up with bigger travel for longer period of times. And you're just going to follow their lead, and you're going to move at the pace of your child. I heard once from a really wise person that the best time to go to one of the mega theme parks is when your child will have the stamina to wear you out.
That's a good note.
And not to drag them around rather than the other way around. So just think about each stage of life and what really meets your child where they are and how you can enjoy sharing your interests with them.
So you mentioned theme parks. It makes me think about hitting the road. One of my best memories of breaks was like getting in the car. We'd have these long road trips from Cleveland, Ohio, all the way to. We went to Yosemite. We went to Yellowstone. Those were some of the best moments, and even the long car rides. Mm-hmm. What do you have any advice for if someone's hitting the road with their kids? The best way to take advantage of those opportunities and how to make them work for kids.
First of all, I love road trips.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of hitting the road. I think that's one of the things that's really very much in our culture here. That it's iconic, right? Mm-hmm. The family road trip. And I also grew up with a very iconic family road trip history. We had a light blue minivan and we were all piled in the back and lots of good times. I think have a plan, but be ready for anything. And I think just thinking about yourself as a role model is really important because, road trips test everyone's patience and comfort levels, especially, if you're getting hungry and tired. So thinking about meal times, as I mentioned, keep the meal time, pull over and make sure that you are well fed and well rested as much as possible. Make them comfy. I'm a fan of having pillows and blankets and cozy. I'm a fan of encouraging children to look out the window. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes me a bit of an outlier nowadays. I really recommend that we cultivate and create comfort with looking out the window when we're driving. That wonder of soaking in the changing landscape, the nature that you get to see, just the curiosity for that, the patience for that. I think it's something worth really holding on to.
Push against this impulse to feel like you're bored, and therefore bored needs to be somehow rectified and changed. Yeah.
Stay curious. I think that's what Montessori kids do. I think they stay curious about the changing topography, and we ourselves have to model that, and we have to create this space for that and not rush to entertain or distract our children from the wonder time, that I think is inherently a part of childhood, pre-devices. And I think that we can enjoy that in a road trip, right? So let's say that you have a device-free road trip. Let's say you have lots of pillows and blankets and even neck pillows and have fun with it and make it comfy and cozy. Anyone who knows me knows that I love music and my family loves music. So I'm a huge fan of singing. I think tune into the radio, stream your favorite songs. Maybe people make, playlists before the road trips. You prepare a little bit, so singing and taking breaks, lots of bathroom breaks with young children, and be prepared for anything. I always have vomit bags in my car. If you're a parent and you're not prepared for vomit,
you're not doing your job.
No, you're doing your job, but I just think that you haven't lived until you've experienced vomit on the road,
well,
or in the air.
I've lived.
Yes, you've lived, or anywhere, right? It just happens with children, right? So being prepared for the things that can exit a child at any age, I think are important. Ziploc bags are fantastic. I'm a fan of having sets of clothing in Ziploc bags if you're flying. I think for young children, 4 sets of clothing in Ziploc bags is brilliant because the dirties go into it. Or if you're really environmentally friendly, they've got these great wet bags now that are reusable and washable and so on. I love throwing away the vomit bag, but do you? Yeah. And but be prepared. Sets of clothing is important for flying and road trips. Paper towels. Just be prepared. Just kind of think about all the potentials sideways and then just laugh and roll with it. Lots of deep breaths and just know that you're a role model. So being able to stay calm, being polite to people when you go into a gas station and you're friendly and you're kind and you're respectful. Your children are always watching you. Yeah. And so I think when you respect humans who have jobs of all varieties and when you imbue yourself with curiosity and you role model that, you're going to have a fantastic road trip. But I love having conversations with people that I meet in random rest stops, gas station stops. I think are fascinating, and our whole country is fascinating. So get out there, enjoy it, and chat with people, and let your children chat with people if you feel that the person's sending out good energy.
Yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up here, Can you give one final piece of advice or reminder for people to make the most of these breaks?
Do things that both you and your child enjoy. Front load your attention. I think children really want our time and attention, and front load it when they are alert and curious, so that, like I said, those windows of activity, like we were mentioning, if you were sleeping a little bit and having a slower breakfast, think about that 9 to 11, what's something meaty and fun that we could do together, and then think about how to carve out periods of darkroom time. Always have extra clothing. Bring extra clothing for yourself too if you're traveling far. And then think of activities that are fun. I love when I'm flying to bring wiki sticks because they're sticky and you can mold them into different shapes. I think for young children, if you're taking a flight, read about airplanes and give them the vocabulary and have simple books that describe the different compartments and talk about where the cargo goes and look at that and observe it. So creating the opportunity for conversations about what you see, add the vocabulary, and then allow them to journal. For the youngest children, just drawing is really a great way for them to stay engaged. And then for the older children, have them journal about their trip and travel. Drawing, art, music, curiosity, vocabulary building, conversation, and then some silence. Value silence, value wonder, value just looking out the window.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and then they'll come back to school and they'll be refreshed and ready and have stories to tell.
And give yourself some buffer time to return. I think if possible, try to get back into your routine, and definitely the night before school, always get a good night's rest.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Thank you, Siri, for joining. It's good to get your advice right before we take off. And anyone out there, thank you for listening for this episode or to the other ones throughout the last year. Please take a minute and go to groundedandsoaring.org. You can see more podcasts there. There's blog posts, a lot of that. We love reviews, questions, suggestions. There's ways to do that on the website as well. So thank you, and we'll look forward to break. We'll see you in January.
Can't wait to hear about all the fun adventures that you guys go on. Let us know where you go and all the fun you have, and I hope that everyone stays healthy.
Yes. All right.
Bye.
Bye.